Hello everyone and welcome back to 27 Fox Place. Buying gifts for Christmas can add up quickly, so to help save money, every year I put together gift baskets for friends and neighbors, and I thought I would share that process with you this year. Of course, it does take time to put these baskets together, so to make this project more manageable, I like to break it up into smaller projects that I can do a few weeks ahead of time. Of course, every gift basket needs a gift tag, and when I got my Cricut a few years ago, I started making personalized tags. I have labels and tags that I saved from last year, so all I need to do is print them out. But of course, this year I decided to do something a little bit different. So instead of one tag with the names printed on the front, I'm making two tags. I like to use the pen to write out any personalized messages on the cards, and then I can use the cutting tool to cut out the tag itself. I make a personalized label for each family, but for privacy reasons, I didn't include the actual names on the cards. I have a plain brown cardstock that I have on hand, and I'm using it to make all of the tags. Because the baskets are homemade, I need tags to label the contents, and since the baskets are all the same, I'll need 5 sets of labels. Designing the tags is the fun part, but it's also the most time-consuming part of this process, so to make things a little bit easier, I'm just using the same design from the year before, so that way all I need to do is repeat the process 5 times. Making the tags is something that I can do weeks ahead of time, and the list doesn't usually change much from year to year unless someone moves away, but occasionally we do add someone new to the list, so when I make up the tags, I always try to include an extra set just in case. Of course, every gift basket also needs filler, and because we have a paper shredder, I can make my own. It's quick and easy to do. We have packages delivered to the house all the time, so when we get deliveries, I save the packing paper to use as filler. I start collecting the packing paper a few months in advance, and when I have enough, I start shredding it. But before I start, I clean out the shredder so that the bin is completely empty, and then I just feed all the paper through the shredder. It doesn't cost anything, and the paper gets another use before it gets recycled again. The gift baskets that I make are usually about the same size every year, so I have an idea of how much filler I need, but I always try to collect more paper than we actually need. It's always so much better to have too much than not enough. Before I start baking, I try to make sure that I have all the supplies that I need to put the baskets together. I make the tags, measure out the dry ingredients, and freeze the cookie dough so that all I have to do is bake the cookies and package them up. Once the cookies are baked, they need to go out by the next day, so the more I can get done ahead of time, the more fun I can have making them. I'm making 5 different cookie recipes today. With a little prep, making the dough is an easy process. Each recipe has the same butter, sugar, and eggs that needs to be creamed together before adding the flour. I'm starting with the dough that needs to be chilled for a few hours before I can shape it, so that while I'm waiting for the dough to chill, I can mix up the rest of the dough. When I'm working with cookie dough that needs to be chilled, I like to divide the dough in half. That way I can leave half the dough in the fridge so that it doesn't heat up while I'm working on the other half. I have a stand mixer that I use to make the cookie dough. It isn't necessary, but it does make the whole process much faster and easier. All I need to do is wash out the bowl after each batch and start again. I've had a stand mixer for about 30 years now. And when I first started making cookies, I used a small hand mixer to mix up the wet ingredients and most of the flour, but having a stand mixer cuts the time in half. I've been using the stand mixer for so long, I can't imagine using anything else now. I think that just might be the reason why I like to bake. When I was a kid, my grandmother mixed everything by hand, and she would always let me mix everything together until my arm got tired, and then she would take over. I was always amazed how strong she was. Mixing a batch of cookie dough by hand is a workout, and I'm not sure if I could manage 5 in one day, but because the mixer does all of the work, I can prep other ingredients and clean up while I'm waiting, and hands down, it's probably my favorite appliance. While I'm waiting for the dough to chill, I have 3 more batches to make. I'm starting with the Toll House recipe that you can find on the back of the package, and I'll use the same recipe for 1 batch of chocolate chip dough and another batch of white chocolate macadamia nut. If you've been following my channel, then you might remember that I avoid grains and dairy, so it might be surprising that I'm using traditional baking recipes. I'm not baking for myself though, and the people that I'm baking for don't have any allergies or dietary restrictions. I know that there are gluten-free flours you can use to substitute for all-purpose flour, but I've never taken the time to learn about gluten-free baking, so I just stick with what I know. I'm not making cookies with fancy holiday colors or shapes. I may stick to basic cookies, but I do like to make them extra large. I use a scoop to measure out the cookies, and I have an assortment of different size scoops. I'm not really sure which size I'm using, but I think it's about 2 tablespoons. And I'll use the same size scoop for all of the cookies that I'm making. The scoop makes it easy to keep them a uniform size and shape so that they bake evenly. I usually try to make the dough and freeze it until I'm ready to bake the cookies, but I ran out of time this year. If I was going to get this video up before Christmas, I had to start a week early, so instead of freezing the dough, they're going straight into the oven today. There's a few reasons that I like to freeze the dough ahead of time. It's much easier to bake the cookies without having to juggle between mixing and scooping, but I'm much more likely to burn them when there's more going on. I like to use a timer to help keep track of when the cookies need to come out of the oven, but when I'm baking so many cookies all at the same time, it's easy to forget to set the timer, so there's always a batch that's a little overcooked and a batch that's a little undercooked. In my last video, I showed you how I measure out all of the dry ingredients for each recipe so that all I have to do is mix together the wet ingredients. There's always a lot to do during the holiday season, but prepping the dry ingredients is something I can do weeks ahead of time, which is a huge time saver when you have 5 batches of cookie dough to mix up.
Here by the ocean, fire is burning, flares in the wind. Over the mountains, I see the moon, and so it begins.
Once the last batch of cookie dough is scooped out, I can start to clean up and put things away. There's still cookies baking in the oven, and I still have cookie dough in the fridge that I need to bake, but I can load up the dishwasher and wipe down the countertops while I'm waiting. I always try to clean up as I go because the more I can get done now, the less that I have to do later on.
I know you really want to stay till the fires burn out. Days like this will slowly fade away. Memories will always stay the same. Here by the ocean, fire is burning, flares in the wind. Over the mountains, I see the moon, and so it begins. I have no doubt, I know you really want to stay till the fires burn out. Days like this will slowly fade away. Memories will always stay the same. Always stay the same.
Both the peanut butter cookies and the snickerdoodles need to be rolled into balls before they go into the oven. Chilled dough holds its shape better and it's not as sticky, so it's easier to work with. But I'm not going to roll the dough with my hands. Instead, I'm just going to use a scoop to shape the dough. The dough will be flat on the bottom, but it will still have a perfectly rounded shape, and it's much easier and faster to do.
Wait for the sun. It's getting closer.
I'm using plain granulated sugar to make a traditional crosshatch pattern on the cookies, but you could use colored sugar to make them even more festive, or peanut butter blossoms would be another good option for the holidays. But instead of pressing the dough down before baking, you would just wait until afterwards to press the chocolate kiss into the cookie. Shaping snickerdoodles is just like shaping peanut butter cookies, but instead of dusting them with sugar, I need to roll them in cinnamon sugar. I just learned that snickerdoodle comes from a German word that means snail noodles. And I have no idea what that has to do with the cookies. They're soft and buttery and melt in your mouth. Snickerdoodle is still hands down my favorite cookie, and I still have one every year. Even though I know I'm going to pay for it the next day, it's still worth it. If I can finish baking early enough, I try to wrap up the cookies so that I can deliver them in the same day so they stay as fresh as possible, but I didn't have enough time, so I had to store them in freezer bags until the following day. Most of the cookies were cool enough to put away, but there were still a few that were just coming out of the oven, and they needed some more time to cool down before I could put them away. Before I start bagging up the cookies, I divide each batch of cookies into equal piles so that I have one pile for each basket, and I usually have enough for about 5 or 6 cookies in each bag. And I like to include a variety of cookies so that there's a little something for everyone. Every year is a little bit different, but I like to have everything ready by the 20th so that all I have to do is bake the cookies and assemble the baskets, and I usually bake the cookies a few days before Christmas so that we can deliver them by Christmas Eve. And every year I make an extra basket just in case we get an unexpected visit or a gift from someone we know. But I'm a week early this year and the cookies will be stale in another week. So at the last minute I realized that I only need to make 4 baskets instead of 5. So I was able to get another cookie in each bag. I use cellophane bags to help keep the cookies fresh. I use treat bags that are wide enough for even the biggest cookie to sit flat in the bottom of the bag. And the bags that I have come with wire twist ties, so once all the cookies are in the bags, I can use the ties to secure the bags. Instead of an actual basket, I like to use aluminum baking pans. They come in all different sizes and they're only a few dollars each, and I like to use the deep size pan so that I have more room for the filler. There have been years when I've used wicker baskets or festive tins. The baskets are much nicer and they can be repurposed for something else, but that rarely happens, so they typically end up in the landfill. So I decided to start using disposable pans because even if they don't get repurposed, they can still be recycled. Once all the baskets were all filled up, I just needed to add the tags. I used a thin curling ribbon to attach the tags to each bag of cookies. I just thread the ribbon through the hole in the tag and tie it around the top of the bag, and then I used a pair of scissors to curl the ends of the ribbon. Of course, once I got started, I realized I should have put the tags on before I put them in the basket. It was easy enough to tie the ribbon onto the bag, but there wasn't a lot of room left to curl the ribbon with the scissors.
When everything's white, glimmering silver white, and stillness fills the night, it's Christmas, a winter wonderland, a snowball in each hand. Take me away
Once the baskets are all filled up, I just put the whole thing inside a large cellophane bag to keep everything together. The bags I have are just a little bit too large, so I folded the ends of the bags underneath the basket and then secured them in place with a little bit of tape.
Oh, nothing compares to the love that
I used a wire tie to close up the top of each bag. I just made a few bows and attached the wire tie to secure the bow to the top of each bag. And then I just tied on the gift tags that I made with some more curling ribbon. And just like that, I have gift baskets that look like $1,000,000 for a fraction of the cost.
from big to small, warm laughter and white smiles, my presents stacked in piles. Take me away, Christmas Day. Thanks for this past year. Oh, nothing compares to the love that we share. Oh, what a bliss.
That's all for today. I wanted to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications before you go. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I hope to see you next time.
My presents stacked in piles. Take me away, Christmas Day. Take me away, Christmas Day.